Do not buy a tenant in common property in Los Angeles until you watch this video. I'm going to explain what a tenant in common is, some of the benefits about buying a tenant in common, and some of the pitfalls that you need to watch out if you are going to do this type of transaction. And if you own a multifamily home like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, this is a really interesting way that you can sell the units individually and potentially make more money. So what is a tenant in common? This is a type of ownership where multiple people can own a percentage of a deed or a percentage of a property. Think of it kind of like a condo. You have multiple people owning a condo and there's common spaces there, just like a tenant in common property. For example, let's say we have a fourplex and 4 separate people want to own each one of those units. With a tenant in common, you can actually do that. One unit will own 25%, the next unit will own 25%, and the third and fourth unit will also own 25% exclusive use of their own unit, plus 100% of the common spaces. So if you have a front yard, a backyard, or if you have an interior courtyard, those are all common spaces that everyone owns part of. But you only get 25% of your deed is for your unit only. The biggest difference between a tenant in common and a condo complex, in a condo, you own 100% of your deed. So no one else has any say over your deed. It's just you, and you pay a homeowners association. Just like a tenant in common, they also have a tenant in common agreement that are very similar to HOAs. An HOA rules and restrictions limit and guide the owners on how they can live in that property. Same thing with a tenant in common property. This is an agreement that is drafted up by an attorney. Typically, it's one attorney in San Francisco who has done thousands and thousands of these. But it's an agreement that basically outlines everything in that property, including how you use it, how you can sell it, how you can rent it out, if you're allowed to rent it out, any kind of major changes that are done in the property. All of these things are spelled out in your tenant in common agreement. There's also a monthly fee, just like a homeowners association. Now, typically, this can be anywhere between $150 up to $400, depending on the tenant in common property. Some will have pretty low HOAs or tenant in common agreements, or some will be a little bit higher. Ultimately, the people who own that property, all 4 of those owners, will have a say in what that tenant in common agreement looks like. And you can make amendments to it if you want to lower your HOA, or if you need to raise your HOA in order to cover costs that are associated with a new roof or a new plumbing or a big issue that needs to be addressed. You can raise those by changing the tenant in common agreement. Now, there have been over 300 tenant in common transactions in the Los Angeles area, which is a lot less than in San Francisco, where it is a much more common transaction. They have been doing this for a lot longer, but LA is starting to get caught up because our affordability has been tanking over the last few years. Things are just so expensive in this city that this is becoming more and more attractive to buyers that are wanting to get into a property, especially dense areas like Silver Lake, Los Feliz, or Echo Park. These areas are becoming very, very expensive, but they're still very attractive to live in. So tenant in common properties are becoming more and more relevant. Now, some of the benefits, obviously, these type of transactions are a little bit more affordable than traditional sales. Usually 10 to 15% less market value than you will a traditional condo or a house. And one of the really great benefits is that you will build equity over time. Now, these type of properties, you have a mortgage, typically just like a condo. Every time that you make a mortgage payment, you are contributing to your equity. And as we all know, real estate is the best way for long-term wealth. Another benefit is tax deductions. Obviously, you need to talk to your accountant anytime that you're doing anything with taxes, but you will have a mortgage deduction and some property taxes that you can deduct on these type of properties. So again, make sure you talk to your accountant because everyone's financial situation is a little bit different. Okay, let's talk about some of the pitfalls. And there definitely are a couple that you need to be aware of before you purchase a tenant in common property. Probably one of the biggest obstacles of getting a tenant in common property is the financing aspect. Typically, there are only 2, maybe 3 lenders that will do financing for a tenant in common property. And those loans tend to have much higher and tighter restrictions for qualifications. You must have at least a 740 FICO score. You have to have at least 6 months of reserves, and typically it's at least 15% down. Most of these type of loans are adjustable rate mortgages. Most of them are like 10-year ARMs, but you will have some products that are 30-year fixes. The best terms that you'll get is when you put 20% down. So they do not have 10%, 5%, or 3.5% down options on this type of financing. The second thing you need to just be aware of is that we don't really know a lot of the resale value of tenant in common properties because there just have not been very many here in the Los Angeles area that have already resold. I did see a couple on the market when I've been touring properties every single week. I have seen some that were resales that were selling for more than what they're asking for. Now, obviously, when you have appreciation of a single family home, that's going to be the gold standard of appreciation. Then it tends to go condos, or townhouses, then condos, then probably tenant in common properties. But these properties are still appreciating just like other properties. And we're in a good market, so we haven't seen a lot of defaults, which bring me to my third downfall. Now, if a property owner in a fourplex defaults on their mortgage, the lender will have to foreclose on that unit. They're not going to foreclose on the whole building, but they will have to foreclose on that specific unit and that percentage of the deed. If that person defaults on their mortgage, but they're not paying their taxes, which would make sense, then the rest of the homeowners will need to pay up the difference. And last but not least, you will be living with other people as your neighbors. Just like a condo situation, you can have a lot of different people with a lot of different types of personalities. So if you don't want to deal with a person that doesn't quite fit with your personality type, then this is not the right type of transaction for you. Okay, now let's pivot to property owners who own a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, or fiveplex. If you were thinking about selling your home, you might make more money if you sell each of these properties as an individual unit than as a whole unit. Or it'll be a lot easier to sell if you have that opportunity. Now, if you own a property that is in much need of repair, this is probably not going to be the right type of transaction for you. Nobody is going to buy a tenant in common property that needs a lot of deferred maintenance because that's immediately money that is out of their pocket that they're going to have to fix something. So if you have a duplex, triplex, fourplex, and you want to do this type of transaction, the property needs to be in excellent condition. Typically, new finishes, new fixtures, new plumbing, electrical, all of these things will need to be brought up to current standards in order for this transaction to really work well. Now, if you are a owner of one of these type of properties and you want to sell a part of it and keep a part of it, this will allow you to do that. So if you need an infusion of cash by selling, let's say you have a single family home and a duplex in the back, and you want to sell the duplex and make some of that money, but still retain that single family home in the front, this is a perfect opportunity for you to do that as well. The biggest caveat when you're trying to do that type of transaction is that you cannot, if you have a current mortgage on that property, you cannot sell those duplexes unless you can pay off that existing mortgage. So if you own this free and clear, this is super easy to do. But if you do own a mortgage, the sale of one of those units will need to pay off your existing mortgage. So that makes it a little bit complicated if you do have a loan on your property. If you're thinking about doing this type of transaction, just click on the link down in the description and I'd be more than happy to discuss your real estate goals. I've been a realtor for over 21 years and I love helping people find the right solutions for their real estate needs. My name again is Felipecrook, investing in your dreams.